this has two problems. One is too wordy, and also the text size is too small as a visual aid. Even if you're going to put the entire text here, the text size should be bigger than this. Usually starting from 30 is a good place to start, and 30 is not going to fit. But if I move this little bit, let's see, it actually, no, it won't fit. So 30 is not going to work if you're going to go with a font size 30. How about 24? Why is that too small? How about 28? 26? Good. And now it fits. What I just did was I was testing the uppermost limit for the font size. You don't want to make it too large or too small, but in many cases this is font size 26, it's definitely not too large. Then you still have to think if you really need the whole text here. What are the main things you are trying to emphasize here? What do you need a textual support when you explain things? I don't think this part is part of it. Cognitive load theory, do you want to emphasize it? If not, don't need it. Do you want to say specifically, is it really important here? If not, don't need it. You will be saying the whole thing orally, but the on-screen texts are there only to support what you're saying. It doesn't have to repeat what you're saying, unless this is a English language class and trying to teach the language itself. Do you need it refers to? Probably not. Okay, how about this? Now it's so much simpler. If you think that the whole thing was actually important, you can still leave them, but don't use the whole paragraph or paragraphs. Just use keywords or key terms to emphasize certain points. You're not creating a summary document, you're creating a visual aid. So there's a huge difference between those two. If you're making a self-study or self-review material, the heading is going to be very useful. But since you're using this as you talk about the definition, everybody knows you're talking about definition. And the visual aid's main purpose is to support this message. So just use the slide for the sole purpose of supporting this message. So if I go to the extreme, you don't even need this, so you can go like this. Even better approach would be, instead of writing up the whole paragraph or sentence, I know there are certain key phrases or keywords that are very important or essential to understand the concept. So use on-screen text just for that. For example, that can be this simplified. What you're saying is, it refers to the learning effect observed when worked examples are used as part of instruction. Instead of showing this whole sentence here, you can just show this. Also, if you want to put animation, do that. Show this first. So it refers to the learning effect observed when worked examples are used. Okay, and if you wanna use a visual support for other parts of this definition, if possible, instead of writing the whole thing down like this, try a similar approach to this. For this slide, make a better connection between these 2 points you're trying to make and those images. Right now, the connection is kind of loose and vague. If lucky, most people will just ignore these images, and if unlucky, some people will try to make sense out of these images or try to make sense of these connections. Then they may miss what you're talking about, or they may be confused even. That could be the worst case scenario. And showing an example is a really good idea to make sure everybody understands what the worked example is. This is font size 18. That's really small, so try to make it larger, around 30 if possible. Now I know 30 won't fit, so think about the layout or use animation to simplify the layout. The first thing you can do is, there's a little space up here and it's a wasted space, so move it up maybe to here. You have more space now. And this can go into, now you have even more space, so that gives you more possibility. Let's try 24, font size 24 now. It works. It's much better now, but ideally I think it'll be even better if this would be probably the best size, font size for this. or maybe 32. Let's try 32. It's so close, you know, it almost fits. So I think if we're gonna go with the font size 32, I think we can do it. The thing is, you know, adjusting the line spacing. How about single? And also remove the space, and alright, it fits. Okay, how about this? Even better. And of course, to demonstrate the worked example principle, you definitely need to animate this line by line. So add an animation. Let's try this approach and try again. Yeah. Okay, one by one. Good. But when you talk about the worked example, I think if you really want to demonstrate what the worked example looks like, you might want to do something like this. I added all the animation effects already. Let me play it. At this point, you can kind of explain what the worked examples are meant for, and you can go through the worked example in actuality. So that's the first step. Then for the second step, next step, boom, boom. Then with this framework or scaffolding, it significantly reduces amount of things students have to think about for each step. Anyway, you read the article, so you understand, you know, why this is better than showing the whole thing from the beginning, and why having those template or framework boxes in this case is better than not having those. If you're expecting examples not related to math and science, you need some precursor so that they will think outside the box. When you ask a question, you could use graphics to remind them of different variations of worked examples, or if you're not going to show any pictures, then question itself is going to be the most important thing here, and you probably want to use like font size 60 and center it. And also, this is a whole sentence. As a visual aid, another approach you can take is you don't have to have the whole sentence written, because you're going to be saying this. Does anyone have any applicable examples? Then when you say that, you could actually show key phrase, just key phrase instead of the whole sentence. That makes it so much easier for students to get what you're talking about. Okay, so it's still at the beginning stage of the designing and development. Just to remember, you are creating a visual aid. You're not creating a summary note or lecture note. This doesn't have to provide the entire message. These slides don't have to provide enough information for students to learn the contents only through those slides. Majority of things be learned through your live presentation plus these slides. So if slides alone are going to be enough to understand what you're teaching, then the slides are overloaded with information. Again, the slides, whatever you put on the slide is going to be for supporting what you're saying. It shouldn't compete with what you're saying. If you have questions, make sure to ask me.